Perfect. Now let's bring in Bryson and
John, I'm
John.
disappointed that you phrase it as you're not sure whatever we're going to do when the whole thing's been a fucking spicy rant buildup. It's been unclear what the fuck we're going to be doing.
I think we can start with both you and I need to update our profile pics because the men that are our profile pics are not the men that they see now. There's confusion. They're like, those guys look very dapper and young with lots of hair. And we are not those people. I think that picture was me a decade and a half ago. So sorry to disappoint everybody.
John, I think we can help them by orienting everybody to our first rant ever at Way West Hackenfest and a picture of that. Because that's
you have that? Do you have that picture?
I do have it queued up. I was ready.
Nice.
So I need to put a little context on this thing. So Bryson shows up with the spicy rant and he pulls out the unicorn costume. And it's not a devil costume, it's a unicorn. He gives me the unicorn costume and I'm excited to start because I'm the red unicorn, red teamer. I love it. And then the smell hits me. And it wasn't good.
Whoa. No, that's not what the story is.
Like when they put on the costumes before the shows or Slipknot, like halfway through the tour, you're like, you got to wear it. And I wear it and I was proud to wear it, Bryson. But it was a little funky there.
I have a very different recollection, and you in fact asked me what my shampoo was because you were enjoying it so much. So it's okay. It's okay. You can be a vulnerable man here, John. We're about to go on a rant. The truth.
So we're going to rant. I think that there's absolutely nothing of any importance going on in computer security at all. So I'm going to pick something at random. I'm going to go on Reddit real quick.
Well, gentlemen, before you start the party, hey, we'll get out of your way. Wanted to let you totally have the stage, but goodness gracious, if I may say, it's an absolute honor to have you both here. You know, I'm a little bit of a fanboy. I've been to both of your own events, and it's just truly a real treat for you to be here hanging out with us at ours. So it means the world to me. But I'll let you run with it, guys. See you later.
Loaded. We're ready to go in a bit.
Okay, so let's I'm going to start off so you guys can type in your questions and whatever platform, and then the team is going to channel those to Bryson and I, and then we're going to give you our unfiltered view. Bryson, I'm going to start with a question for you. What do you think about the government banning, what was it, Anthropic's AI?
All right. So I'm gonna have to preface this because I feel like we just jumped into geopolitical territory, which is that one of the big things that I see with all the fucking nerds in this space is they're trying too hard to learn what they think is the best move in front of them, right? I need to master this system. I need to understand this. And you look at your problems in your organization, mistakes are made, but getting people to understand and getting buy-in out of security is the challenge. So with a question like that, I think that's understanding the macro environment, right? What are the things around us that set the way that our organizations function, the way there's politics in our organization, to then what we need to do to make the things happen to actually protect the enterprise. So with a question like that, what did I see? I saw politics. And this isn't a right or left thing, but at the end of the day, I didn't see a technical decision being made. I saw a tantrum from a political perspective.
I agree with you 100%, but I also felt like it was fantastic marketing. I mean, I would love to have a product that the government says too dangerous.
Yeah,
you can't release this publicly. I mean, oh my God, that is just fantastic marketing. I don't know if you remember, but years ago, the folks at Swim Lane at RSA, they did that thing where they had a bunch of people that were protesting outside of RSA, like no more tickets, we hate tickets. It looked like a real freaking protest. And they got banned. Like RSA shrink wrapped their entire booth and kicked them off the floor. And I was sitting in our hotel where coincidentally enough, the marketing people from Swim Lane were there. And they were just despondent and they were drinking heavy. And they're like, I can't believe this. I'm like, you were in every freaking security magazine. It was Dark Reading. You were in Security Week. You were in all these different things. And that was the best. Like, there's no one at this
PR. Yeah, it's great marketing.
Get that level of PR. You should all be happy. And I remember this one lady, she was pretty far down the line of drinks. She looked at me and she's like, would you be willing to say that to my CEO? And I was like, you bet. But there is bad publicity.
I know the Swim Lane CEO.
Yeah. But it was fantastic. It was great. Everyone knows who they are. But this is similar to that, right? I'm sure there's people at Anthropic that are freaking out.
So I think we're going to come back to that because I have a feeling we're going to have a conversation on AI writ large, because I think it's been the greatest marketing campaign more than it has been the reality. But we got our first question from the audience, which is, what is the best way for someone to really break into cybersecurity? Blue team and red team focus.
Okay, I'll start. The timing's bad. The timing is really bad. So my thoughts on this is everybody that's in the CTO, CEO, CIO level is looking at AI as a cost savings tool, right? They're going to come in and they're going to use automated red teaming, and we don't need pen testers anymore. We're going to automate SOC, and we don't need SOC analysts anymore. We can get rid of junior positions all the way across the board. And I think that that's incredibly short-sighted, and it's incorrect. And I think it's predicated on the belief that all security is a state machine. The number of vulnerabilities that are going to be coming out in the future are going to be the same as it has in the past. That is not true. I think when we're looking at vulnerabilities discovered for red teaming, assuming the number of vulnerabilities that are discovered and needed to be mitigated is going to stay consistent is also not true. We're seeing AI actually increase the work that needs to be done for defensive teams and offensive teams. But right now, management doesn't recognize it. We're seeing some managers that are starting to recognize it. So here's what I'm going to recommend. I'm going to recommend you take as much training as you possibly can, right? I'm from anti-siphon security training. As I say, one of my favorite things, some of my best friends are my best competitors. And if we're looking at, just hacking training, we're talking about Continuum, we're talking about all the different training that is out there, Cyber Mentor, and the stuff that Jerry does every morning, which isn't technically training, but it's good training every single day. You need to be up on everything. So when you get that opportunity to get in front of people and you know your stuff, make sure you know your stuff.
So I'm going to agree with John on the macro environment, but I'm going to give a little bit more context. So in 2022, cybersecurity stopped being the hot market. Money wasn't pouring in, budgets weren't increasing. And so the ability to get any job went like this from the financial perspective.
Careful,
now
Bryson.
we're in the second part of it, which is we're undergoing potentially a technological revolution. Artificial intelligence is going to be the latest jump forward. The last revolution was computer and information. Previous to that, the industrial revolution. We don't yet know how the system is going to settle. And this is, of course, where everybody's unsettled about artificial intelligence at a personal level, because nobody really knows yet. And
wait, I'm gonna stop you. I'm gonna have you pick at that. I have a question for you. You don't believe it's hype?
I don't believe it's hype.
Okay.
Well, so
it's going to have aspects of hype, no question. But
so overall, AI is going to be a revolution. Period. The question is, what does that revolution mean, and what does that mean into security for those who are trying to get jobs right now? So just setting the playing field there, but I'm happy to dig into that part quicker. So in summary, I think when you look at the statistics, yeah, the overall job market has not been great. The second part, though, is that where we've seen a shift in the job requirements, anything that involved automation, which is a tier 1 SOC analyst effectively, right? I am the human in between, taking something from a system, correlating with other systems, and then orchestrating systems. That's going to be a risky position over time. I think that's going to decrease, and I think that job is going to go into something more. As John said, though, this shit is creating more work. AI doesn't solve all the problems, and it doesn't even, do it really well. The potential of it is what everybody is grasping for. And so I think we're going to have a really hard year professionally, because the jobs aren't going to come back. We're going to be putting more weight on people while the breaches continue to increase at the same time. And so in terms of breaking in, I think you need to be building your own projects, and you need to be exploring different ways that you can use and become familiar with AI on how to do that, and building agentic skills. So learning how to establish, because it isn't vibe coding. Most of it is the proper structure to engage the LLM to be able to build more sophisticated things.
So let's flip this on its ear. Like, what do you see in a resume when you're hiring somebody right now in this market that makes you think, nah, I don't want to hire this person?
Well, so I don't think I'm a good judge for that, right? Because I have the challenge of we can only hire senior people.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's Side's model.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, because I build a red team tool. I'm a red team vendor.
Yeah, I know, but even senior people, you're going to see things that you're just going to say, this looks bad on a resume.
What I would see is somebody who's not engaging the community.
Okay.
That's why I love what John and team are doing here, because this is what makes it matter. I mean, you've been doing this. I followed your example and doing some of my own things. The way that you offer the anti-siphon training, the pay what you can, I think is a game changer in the industry. So that's what I look at. That's the biggest differentiator. When I see somebody who's just kind of making the donuts, that's a mentality that we can't use. And I know they're not going to really understand the state of the art because they're not networked to the community. Here's something to help everyone feel better at home. Nobody fucking knows everything. Nobody fucking knows everything in this. And most of us can't really even be qualified as experts compared to traditional domains, because the corpus of knowledge and what actually makes security work or not work is kind of so contextual that you really have to know your specific space. So I look for those with the passion, the curiosity, and the network to stay in the know of what the fuck is happening.
So I'm going to throw out some things in resumes that I don't like. If you are somebody that's jumping jobs regularly, that doesn't look good. Just telling you right now, like if you're moving in less than a year, it tells me I'm going to put a bunch of investment in you and you're going to move on, right? Number two, negative space. And what I mean is if somebody is unemployed, and I know a lot of you maybe are unemployed right now, there's two ways that you can handle that unemployment. One way is you can just kind of sit on your ass and not do anything. The other way that you can handle that unemployment is exactly what Bryson just said, engaging the community and doing challenges, right? Like going through and being part of Continuum, being part of Just Hacking training, doing stuff with anti-siphon, hack the box. Like you need to have something in that space. And you almost need to treat it as like an educational section, right? Like I went to college and that's what I did for these 4 years. If you're unemployed, you can say I was doing all of these different training modules and these are the things I completed. These are the cyber range challenges. I don't like negative space where someone's like, I've been unemployed for the past 2 years. But we have another question from John. What is the aspect of the AI era? Which aspect of the AI era is going to be the most dangerous? Is it the growing amount of access, the prompt injection concerns, or the oh my God, vulnerability apocalypse? You want me to take first at this one?
Go for it.
It's the vulnerability apocalypse. We're effed. If you're looking at the tools that are being released right now, I was listening to a podcast last week and the guy was like, there's absolutely nothing about AI that's going to be substantive and it's going to be changing in the industries. The guy doesn't know what he's talking about and it had nothing to do with security. But if you look at security and you're looking at Mythos and you're looking at all of these Project Glasswing and what we're hearing about the vulnerabilities that are discovered with these various models, people need to understand that that is a harbinger of what is to come. It's not that banning a specific model politically or otherwise is actually going to fix the issue. It's a harbinger of what's to come. And if you go to Hugging Face right now, there's over 3 million models. You can get all kinds of obliterated models. And if you're patient and you have a whole bunch of computing power in your house and you utilize it correctly, it may take a little longer. And this is what we're finding at Black Hills Information Security. We're giving people smaller AI boxes, and it's taking a little bit longer for it to complete something that would take Anthropic or OpenAI a few minutes to finish, but it gets it done. And I think that people do not understand the amount of vulnerabilities that are coming at them. And I don't think that they are thinking in terms of compensating controls far beyond patching. So we're not ready for this at all. And these core skills that Bryson was talking about, the learning and everything that you do, become so essential because your solutions now need to be creative and architectural and not patching in nature.
So I'm going to answer that in 2 ways. First, I'm going to tell my favorite story that easily orients everybody to how you manage AI. And it's called the racist soap dispenser. You can Google this. This is a real video. And you'll see a dark-skinned hand at a regular automatic soap dispenser in a bathroom trying to get soap. No soap. He takes a white paper towel and gets soap. So the first question is, do we think the engineers of the soap dispenser are racist? Of course not. That's the shock part to get your attention. But what were they? They didn't think their problems through. They didn't understand the scope of the space. This is what I was saying earlier about going and getting familiar with more complicated prompt coding, is because it isn't just some random vibe coding to really get more sophisticated tools to be built. This is what we've had to transform at Scythe with a very complex base. That's what allows us to drive things. And this is also from an organizational level, how you get teams to be able to work toward a common goal. So the training data set and the subconscious, the unconscious bias is the first problem. Then you have this thing in operation. What are the guardrails that I need to make sure that are in operation so that when this agent, this AI system goes out of tolerance, which by the way, it's continuing to change. They continue to learn, they adapt, let alone they are a surface area to attack the model itself. That is a offensive thing that you got to worry about. Where do I bring the human in the loop? So that helps, I think, anchor. That is AI policy. What's the proper way to train and deploy? What's the proper way to monitor? So when it goes to what's my biggest fear in terms of just AI writ large, that there's going to be a mistake on the agentic side where it autonomously does something and we didn't properly consider the human in the loop. And because these things can go so fast, right, computer speed, that impact is going to be outsized. So back to the vuln-apocalypse, I'm going to give John credit for something. I was dim on deception technology for a long time. And John gave it to me in a way that I was like, okay, I get it now. Because I was thinking like an APT A player. There's no way I would ever fall for deception tech. But that's not the point. You've already imposed costs by the fact that I have to take longer to conduct my operations because there's potentially deception in there. And so I think the deception technology with AI-led offense is going to be even more important as that tipping point. The second part, yeah, the risk of the vuln-apocalypse to me is the same thing that I saw in 27 with the Vault 7 release. People got access to a level of offensive tradecraft that nobody in the commercial side had any clue ever existed and ever would have gotten there. I see the same risk here where we've now democratized the ability to do these things. You can be dumber and get a lot more. And if you're good, you can get a lot quicker, faster, right? So you can scale. So from the enterprise perspective, I think you have to really assume breach and you need to build up a full understanding of a detection in depth, right? And using deception technology as your bit of light putting minds on the playing field.
So I want to talk a little bit. We got a really good question, but before we do it, you said something: democratization of this technology. I think that a lot of people misunderstand what's happening. They think that it's the domain of OpenAI, it's the domain of Google, it's the domain of Anthropic, it's the domain of Grok, and it's not. This fire is absolutely everywhere. I just gave it to Don. These little NVIDIA DGX Spark boxes. They're $4,600. And I think it has like 176 gig of memory, and it can run a lot of the models. Is it going to be as good as something running on Bedrock or running just like with Anthropic or whatever? Hell no, it's going to be slower, and that's okay. Because what's going to happen in the next 6 months is all of these different companies are operating at staggering losses. They have to start raising prices. For every single query that you do to something like, let's say it costs you $1 at Anthropic, for every dollar they make in revenue, they're spending on average $6 to $12 on the back end on infrastructure for that dollar of revenue. That cannot be sustainable. So we're going to end up in a situation where people are going to start building their own systems and their own like little mini environments to be running this. But all of these tools exist out there. This is not the providence of the large players. But Bryson, Don just put in a question from Hector Ramirez 5413. What is your most favorite and least favorite parts of cybersecurity careers?
I've been doing this for a long time. I have been very involved in the U.S. government. I was actually the first senior advisor on critical infrastructure at CISA. Nobody gave a shit about critical infrastructure until Colonial Pipeline.
It's a good thing that everyone cares now. We finally got it under control. Oh, God, no.
Exactly. And so when you get to the worst part of this, having tried to work this at an international and national level, all the way to, many of the critical infrastructure asset owners that I work with, for those of you who aren't aware, Iran just claimed a successful attack on the California water system affecting 2 million people 2 days ago. That didn't really even get any press for some reason. I don't even
wild.
Nobody has picked up on that. Now, here's the thing. I'm pretty sure the California water system is safe in terms of we haven't poisoned the water. They weren't able to do that because there's manual safety controls. But here's what fucking scares me. There are 150,000 water systems in the United States. We don't even have a list of them. So we don't even know if they all have manual safety controls. And is there anything you should worry about more than the quality of your water? That is where I'm struggling in this career because this is where I most of my talks, I feel like half of them are therapy and half of them are executive coaching, because our problems aren't the technical ones. They are getting the leadership to invest to make these things happen. And I mean this at the international, the national, the company, the CISO, the team level. And so what's my favorite part? My favorite part is teaching. I love to teach. My favorite story is one of those really big companies you all know, and you might even be working with that logo right now, but I'm not going to give it away. And they were at one of my talks where I'd walk through something, and they came to me 3 years later and like, we changed the entire company based on your talk. This was our approach to security after we understood what you were saying. And oh my God, everything is so much better. That feeling that you made that kind of impact and you helped, because think about all of the psychological pain we all go through and frustration, to have just helped some amount of that with somebody and seen the lights go on. That's the best part about this industry for me.
I love the teaching, right? Because that's something that I do constantly. It's part of my core DNA. I love the tech. I love working with my teams. I love doing the day-to-day operations. And to be honest, I know this sounds a bit glib, but I'm super excited for this AI apocalypse. Like, I'm here for it. And the reason why I'm here for it is security was starting to get very stale to me. It was basically, here's another ransomware breach. Here's another ransomware breach. Here's more creds that were like exposed on S3 buckets. And for the first time in a long time, I'm energized in a way that I haven't been energized, I think, in a decade. It's now new technology, it's new vulnerabilities, it's new tools. It's awesome. So I know that sounds weird, but that's just kind of how I'm personally wired. The thing I hate, and Bryson and I have talked about this a lot, is how many times have we seen products that are subpar, but because they have like $100 million in VC funding, they're like everywhere. And it's like, and we're like, well, there's something over here that's better or free. And these guys, they show up, they're a flash in the pan, they disappear. Karma is a wheel, it exists. But I'm going to tell you, the money side of information security is exhausting. And once again, a big shout out to John and Don and kind of what they're doing. Once again, I think it's great that there's so many affordable training options. And right now, training options aren't just like the domain of the crazy expensive offerings that are out there. The fire is out in the public. But the money side of computer security, it just drains me. Anytime I walk the floor at RSA or Black Hat or any of those things, I just feel my life force being sucked away from me by these lights. So,
yeah, I'm a product vendor. I've done the VC capital raise. I'm a part of the money system, and I've been able to raise a fraction. You know why? Not because of who I am, but because of who they think I am. And I was a national security East Coast guy. The way the money works in our market is if it's Silicon Valley or Israel. Those are the two financial markets that drive everything. And if you aren't connected into that money, you're on the outside, and you've got to do these guerrilla tactics. And here's the thing. The other lesson I learned is I used to think that in the beginning, I just needed to convince a potential buyer why my tool was better. And I thought that would get me a sale.
Hey, it worked for me.
It does not work at all. And I had so many of them, and they were like, I get it. I understand. I see how Scythe is different, and I'm going to buy that. And I was like, well, and they're like, because it's easier. Never underestimate convenience and easier driving money.
Yeah, agreed. We got another question here. Archangel, I am building out a virtual CISO practice at work. What tips do you have to convince reluctant organizations to spend money and change their security policies? Oh, see, that question, if Bryson and I can answer that, Bryson and I would not be here right now. We would be out racing each other's yachts in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico.
Oh, yeah, I don't think I can afford a plastic boat in my tub. So I'm going to take that question, answer it, and give a broader one back to where I see, again, the community struggle and kind of a different way to phrase what I've been saying. There's two kinds of companies. Leadership cares about security. Leadership doesn't care about security. Shock, right? Wait, but it's not that they don't care about security. The business leaders care about their business. And what is the only part of security that absolutely 100% ties to the business? Compliance. GRC is the existential foundation for that business to be in operation. Anything else is nice to have. We'd love to do that. I believe in it. You know what? I want to be secure. You cannot make the leadership different than what they are. They are the priorities. They are the reason that we get jobs. They are what pays all of that. You have to go where they are, understand that, and work from that. And so if you have a leader that most often is going to be GRC based, that's where you have to work from. If you get the chance to do the critical thinking of driving security on top of it, that is an investment that they have to understand on top of it, and only as long as it fits with their priorities.
I'm gonna take a slightly different approach. I agree 110%. But one of the things we work at BHIS is the idea of quantum capitalism, right? Like if I'm doing marketing, a lot of times it's hands out to give. We're doing webcasts, we're doing backdoors and breaches, we're doing training, we're doing all of these different things. We aren't directly trying to get a sale. So let me give you an example of how you can do this in your own business, Archangel. So what I recommend is you start doing brown bags. Right? If you're in a small area with like standard MSSPs and things of that nature, you start doing presentations on how to secure people's home networks. You start doing presentations on how to protect your kids online. You start doing those types of things where you're not going directly after the sale of what you're trying to do, but you're doing something that everyone's curious about. How do you protect your business from ransomware with 5 easy steps, right? You create these things and you create an environment where you're the expert and you're not going directly towards the sale that you're trying to get ever under any circumstances, right? You're building up credibility. And that credibility becomes really important. At BHIS, through the years of what I've done, is a lot of the people that still come back and they do work with us, they've came through this kind of way of being trusted first. They trust us. And then they start being comfortable spending money. But the point is, you want to be that person whenever they have a question about compliance, when they have a question about a control, when they have a question about something, and they need to think, who can they talk to that they can trust? It's going to be you. So if you're always trying to, I need a presentation where I can talk about my company, that's not going to work. Of all the years that I've known Bryson, I think I've never once seen him do a presentation. He's like, at a con, here I am talking about Scythe or, anything. It's always about the market forces. It's about the environment. It's about the attacks. It's about the techniques to become that trusted advocate. Once you become that trusted advocate, the money will come. All right. What do we got here? Since it's a rant, imagine the dumbest person you ever met. Now give him 100 times the power he had before, and that's what's going on with AI. I think that's funny. I think that there's a lot of people that talk about AI slop and vibe coding, but I'm telling you, it's real. Like, especially in vulnerability discovery and what we're seeing in it, and we're looking at exploit path analysis, it's real. But it does require a human being who knows what the hell they're doing to be able to parse the results. It's basically, Bryson kind of mentioned this a little bit, and Bryson, I'll kick it back over to you. It's simply moving the bottleneck. So I want you to imagine, let's say development, right? Let's get out of security. Let's say AI can develop software 1,000 times faster than any human being. That doesn't mean we're going to see software hitting the market 1,000 times faster. It's moving the bottleneck to QA, QC. It's moving the bottleneck to requirements derivation. It's moving the bottleneck to the infrastructure that needs to be created to host that tech. It's not like it's just going to be amazing all the way through. It still requires human, but it is absolutely something that is fundamentally going to change everything.
So I can echo where John noted the bottlenecks. This is how you can tell a company is actually AI native versus AI pretend, which is a market challenge too. And it's if they only talk about the tech, because it's the people, the process, the organization that has to fundamentally change, because there are those bottlenecks, right? Requirements, product, and QA are your 2 bottlenecks now, because your engineering with the right hands on it can go so much quicker. And think about the reason for the product side of it. It's subtle until you realize we're going to democratize some generalized things, but to really do good work takes an expert. There's a reason you can't just vibe code, a Zoom overnight, because you don't know all the details of streaming and telecommunications. And guess what? The AI is going to get it wrong, because the AI doesn't know how to do that, right? It doesn't have that functional expertise. And so I think there's also going to be a continued drift between those who are experts, which is why the fundamentals are still important, and being able to use AI. Those are going to be the 2 things that differentiate. Those that just play around with AI without having a fundamental understanding of cybersecurity will flail, because you won't actually know how things are supposed to go. It's going to think that this is in the Splunk, common information model, and it isn't. That is an AI failure, and in fact that you don't have the functional engineering piece.
You want to take this next question first, since you're still going?
Does AI kill junior positions? Thoughts on entry-level jobs? Yes, this is what we were saying earlier. And the job market statistics already show this. Automation jobs are going away. And the problem is that in cybersecurity, because we don't invest in it, junior jobs traditionally have been automation jobs, right? I work service desk, I work the SOC at a low level, and that's after I even know things. So traditionally, I grow from the service desk to the SOC, and both of those, I'm just like I said, you're just the middle of a bunch of systems, and the systems rarely work for anybody, and that's where the burnout comes from. And then the other opportunity that's going to be a junior level category is GRC, learning to be able to audit and do all of those different things. So to me, those are the three IT and security like big position spaces that exist. And I think GRC is going to be increasingly more important because we got to audit the systems that we want to do. The AI systems aren't going to be able to still provide that context for some time because it's a knowledge management versus analytical thing. And I think it's going to get harder to break into SOC. I think Security Operations Center junior positions are going to decrease in the short term.
I disagree with the decrease. No, I agree with you on the decrease in the short term. In the long term, I think it's going to go up. But I think that what we're seeing is a lot of people, whether you're offensive or defensive, we're getting a lot more picky about who we hire. You remember X number of years ago, for offensive work, it was just raining, right? And we could not hire enough offensive engineers in this industry as a whole to be able to handle the level of work that we had. So there was a lot of people that got into this industry, and I hate to sound elitist, but they sucked. They really weren't that good, right? Like they maybe understood vulnerability scanners, they maybe knew Metasploit a little bit. And for a long time in the industry, that was good enough to get a job. And what I think is happening is you're going to see more of the professionalization of the industry. And what I mean by that is if I want to become a structural engineer, I have to go to college, I have to graduate, usually with a fairly good GPA, and then I have to pass an EIT, an engineering training exam. That's a hard effing exam. And then once I have become an EIT, then I have to work underneath somebody who is a professional, like a mentorship program, for a certain number of years before I can even take my test to become a PE, a principal engineer, I think is what it stands for. And that whole space takes a long time. And while I think that there's some good things about that, I also think that there's some really bad things. But what you're going to see is there's going to be fewer jobs in the industry. But I think the level of requirements and what people are expecting, from those people is going to be higher.
Dang it, I lost what I was going to say. Oh yeah. So I sit on the board of advisors at West Point. So I oversee the electrical engineering, computer science, and cybersecurity curriculum there. And in fact, we just had this conversation last year at the board where we were talking about that computer science attendance was down and cybersecurity operations attendance was up. So there's a shift, right? And so I think it actually goes back to what I was saying earlier, is that there's two parts to being able to master the next step. One is going to be cybersecurity. The other is going to be able to drive and use AI better than others can, or how to build those systems, because it isn't just individual, it's also systemic AI use, right? It's a team using LLM for a common purpose and platform. So I think you're on the computer science side. You're going to have a leg up on being able to understand how to drive that, because you understand the mathematics and algorithmic development that's still going to be important to do that. And I think you're on the cybersecurity side. You're going to have more of a functional expert understanding of the domain itself. And so on either side, you're going to have to learn the other to be a complete employee.
And I got a stupid story that I tell. There's no point to the story. There's no magical payoff. It's not even a good joke. It's not a joke at all. But I like to use this story from the perspective of context, right? So these core fundamental skills of networking, Windows, Linux, APIs, cloud services, all these different things are still more important than they've ever been before. But a lot of people are kind of diffusing that and trying to put it down and saying, well, AI will take care of it. And it won't. And let me give you this story. And like I said, don't expect anything magical about it. So I'm setting your expectations low. So the story starts out, my wife and I, we absolutely love walking through the forest. Some of our favorite places that we like walking in the forest is next to the ocean. Specifically, we like walking in the forest next to the ocean in the Seattle, Washington, Oregon area. All right, so stop. I want you to think about what just happened to your thought process as I was telling this admittedly lame story. When I started telling you the story and I said forest, what kind of forest? Was it a deciduous forest? Was it a pine forest? Was it mangroves? Was it a palm forest? Everyone's views probably were a little bit different. What was the time of the year? Was it fall, spring, summer? What was it? But then I said next to the ocean, and we started creating more context around what I was saying. And then all of a sudden, people started thinking of forests around oceans. Once again, what are the types of forests that you would encounter? But whenever I said the Pacific Northwest, it probably collapsed to a pine forest. Now, the reason why I tell you this is because whenever you're working with AI models, the more fundamental context that you can provide that model, the better the outputs are going to be. And the core skills that you talk about, being able to bring those core skills whenever you're working with agents is going to do two separate things. One, you're going to get better outputs, and two, it's going to be more cost effective. No one is talking about this right now, but having the skill and using AI in the future is not just going to be whether or not you could talk to AI and get it to produce something. It's going to be, how can you be more efficient at getting AI to do something? So giving you another example at BHIS, we've had some people that internally at BHIS way at the beginning would say, AI, go look at this environment and do an attack against the environment. And it was relatively expensive to do that. Now, whenever we are progressing in our evolution at BHIS, there's certain things we can do that we don't even need AI to do. We can run a port scan, we can run basic vulnerability analysis, we can do a bunch of things in recon, and we have a bunch of tools that are non-AI in nature that cost us nothing to run. And then we can hand it over to AI and give it very good direction on what we want it to do. And it's starting at a place where it's halfway through and it's getting good context, it's getting good data, it's getting better direction, and we're getting much better outputs at cheaper costs. So if you're trying to be in this industry, you have to know two things. One, you have to know the fundamentals of IT, period, full stop. And number two, you've got to be thinking in terms of how can you reduce the spend for using AI models to make it more efficient, instead of just saying, lazily, like, go write me an exploit mythos and just letting it run because you have an infinite amount of money. For real firms and real people that are doing this, we're not going to have that capability. So I think that if you can look at your career in that lens, I think that you're going to be absolutely fantastic and your resume is going to shine and you will get work.
And that ties to the economic risk you noted earlier, which is, again, you've seen this in every growth startup space like Uber, right? We went from having $5 rides to suddenly $50 rides. Yeah. Those tokens are going to get really expensive because it's the only way that this is sustainable.
Dude, I was at InfoSec Europe in London last week, and I was walking the floor, which is like an RSA or a black hat floor, thousands of vendors, not thousands, hundreds of vendors. And I went through and I counted them all. And it was about 20% of the vendors were offensive AI companies that are like, we use AI to find the vulnerability. So there's no product differentiation there. And this is in your wheelhouse, right? You do cyber offensive stuff and have for years. All of these companies are effed because right now they're getting locked into contracts that are assuming that the spend that they have on their AI services is going to remain static. So there's a bunch of these companies that are entering into maybe multi-year engagements, and they're expecting their costs to be here, but their costs are going to go up at least 5 to 10x. And what happens in this industry whenever that occurs? So, question about literature, or I don't know if you had any take on that, Bryson, too, because like I said, you've done more expert offensive stuff than anybody I know walking the planet. AI is great, but man, you need to have someone driving it correctly.
I mean, so in talking with CISOs, most of them are still not ready to do agentic AI inside the enterprise. That's a 2027 thing, which is, AI automatically doing things, the autonomy of it. And that makes them nervous for a good reason. I think they have shown that they are open to the automated pen test and the exposure part of that, which is anywhere from external attack surface management, which is being able to find all of your cloud instances, all of your publicly facing pieces, and then being able to do something on an individual system, like just amplified application security. So what are several literature that inspire you both? So I'm going to, there's plenty of technical literature. I don't think that's going to be something that's hard to find. So I'll give you some things. Go read Malcolm Gladwell.
Yes.
Malcolm Gladwell, any of his books are a fantastic Some of them are anthropological. Some of them are psychosocial. And yeah, there's a psychology to all of this too. I've done several interviews with some professors who are in the budding field of cyber psychology. Why do offense people do what they do? How do they do what they do? What manages them? And then conversely, the same side of the psychology of the blue. Any of you who've ever been in an incident, you understand the very crucial psychology of the moment that is the hard part of an incident response. So any Malcolm Gladwell book is going to give you a better understanding of humanity. Then on the geopolitical side, I think the most interesting book that I've read lately, and I'm totally blanking on it right now. It was written by a VP at Rand. But I don't remember the name of it. But what's so interesting about this is he starts with 3 theses on that's it. The accidental superpower. Read The Accidental Superpower. It starts with 3 theses on what are the variables that makes a civilization a superpower. And it starts with, one thing, and then it leads to maritime being the other. And it pulls this all together. And it's basically why the United States has been, no matter what we do, we almost accidentally become the number one, and we can't help it. Whether you agree with the hypothesis or not, what's interesting, though, is what he paints is based on how he understands those theses into civilization. What does that mean that the world is going to change? How is it going to change? And he wrote this book in 2014, and it has been prescient, and it seems to indicate the way things are working today. So those are my 2 recommendations on the personal side and the geopolitical side.
Okay, so I'm gonna go like the personal, sci-fi books that I really like is the one book is There Is No Anti-Pneumatics Division. Is just a wild book that you have to read 2 times. It's amazing. I'm also a huge fan of All the Birds in the Sky by Charlie Jane Anders. And then the other book was This Is How to Lose a Time War. And I agree 100% with the Malcolm Gladwell stuff. I absolutely do. And one of the things I love about Malcolm Gladwell and even the science fiction books that I read is I like things that make me look at the world, look in a different kind of space. And just so you all think that I'm not some hipster that sits in a coffee shop and wears a weird hat and attempts to grow strange facial hair, I'm also reading the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. I'm on the most recent book, Parade of Horribles. I love that book. It's amazing. It's crazy. If someone describes it to you, you don't want to read it, but you got to read it. And then on the geopolitical side, The Accidental Superpower is fantastic. Kind of in that same realm would be Guns, Germs, and Steel by Jared Diamond. And then also Long Cycles and World Politics by Medalski. It's kind of at the genesis of a lot of these different things on how nations rise and fall. I've also been watching and reading a bunch of things about empires, especially late stage empires, and how that ties to the United States and how we're exhibiting a lot of the same things that Spain exhibited, the United Kingdom exhibited, Portugal exhibited, and kind of how those cycles kind of wash out moving forward. And then anything I can get my hands on, especially dealing with China and what's going on in the economics of China right now is just kind of a huge thing, because that's what I studied in my undergrad over the years. All right. We just had a new one pop up. I can't see it. Where'd it go?
I believe that we will need more business analysts who understand AI, tech, and business to be effective in the future IT or cybersecurity industry. So I think what you're basically saying is that, so one of the big complaints about security that we have, right, is security seen as a cost. Security seen as the Department of No. And that all comes to then the complaint where we're like, we need to be included earlier. We need to be included earlier. Because if we are, then to the point here is that business analyst is one of those examples of somebody who's there, who has the direct relationship and with security to pull it in as a part of the requirements process for whatever needs to be built.
Okay.
The alternative is...
This gets into a rant that I would like you to get into.
Go for it.
In minutes. If you're in the security team, and I've seen you talk about this, if you're in the security team and people aren't involving you early and throughout the process, why is that, Bryson?
That's a you problem.
Yep.
That is a you problem.
Me? No.
Right? It's a security problem. So this gets to where you see all these arguments online. CISOs need to be technical. This CISO isn't technical enough. You know where all CISOs fail is none of them I've ever seen fail for not being technical. I see them fail because they don't know how to fucking manage their own organization. They are little kids at the C-suite, first problem. That's how the C-suite treats a lot of them. Some of them have built, because they built the relationship and they show them the value because they're there helping them do it. The second part, a CISO's job is to make the rest of your lives easier. They go and build relationships with peers so that there are business analysts who talk to security. If they're not doing that, then it's why it's so hard for you to go and try to make something happen, because your CISO's not doing their fucking job.
Well, and I'm going to, kind of like riff on that just a little bit. You and I both are business owners. We've had multiple business units. And I just want to say, say a little prayer for some of your executives, especially the ones that are good, because it is really hard to be good at like a CISO level job. Now, it's really easy to be just absolutely crap at it, but it is not a skill that people just pop out and like 90% of the population has. Being able to run a large organization effectively is exhausting. It is sometimes impossible. And if you do have somebody in your team that is like exhibiting those skills, you need to promote those people, and you need to watch those people, and you need to continue to work for fantastic people, because I'll tell you right now, like the amount of CISOs that I've talked to over the past 18 years of BHIS is very few. And the amount of people that we've talked to that really don't get security, they don't understand how to communicate, they don't understand, like they have a gaping hole in the way that they approach the world is far too high. So, all right. Are we kind of at the end? I think we are.
I think we are. I mean, I guess what's the final spice we want to leave on it?
I think Google's going to win the AI war. And my reasoning for that, and this is just a spicy take that's most likely wrong, is the amount of money that these companies are burning. Like Anthropic can't continue to burn that much money, and ChatGPT and OpenAI, they can't afford. Google's got money to burn. And I know that Gemini is not that big on anyone's radar, but I think whenever it comes to who can continue to outlast and run money into the ground and has a profitable business sector someplace else, I think Google has that. I think Grok kind of does with Starlink, but I still don't think Starlink has the revenue of like a Google. I think Microsoft should just be stepping the F out and just being a harness that brings other models in. But I'd like to get your take on that.
So Microsoft already does that. That's what Copilot.
They do. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they bring in Anthropic to do that. So I'm going to counter that. I would agree with everything you said there. And I'm actually even rooting for Google, because they're the only one, because they have a cash cow to invest in this themselves, so they can self-fund. They're the ones that seem to be adhering the most to the philosophy that makes this safe.
Yeah. Right? And that's scary when you think about it.
That is scary. But unfortunately, this is the market we're in. And it goes back to my earlier frustrations with the question at the beginning of all of this. So, and here's the thing that changed. Anthropic is going to IPO, which means they don't have to raise. They're going to play on the hype, because that's what's so interesting about AI, right? You didn't have the common man or woman, the executive, giving a shit about anything prior to AI. Right? The cloud, I don't know, that's a thing. Something costs less. They weren't excited about it. AI has gone mainstream, which means the access to cash and capital that these folks are going to have is mainstream. And so where you look at the fact that Elon Musk just became the world's first trillionaire because of that IPO, you have the same thing with Anthropic, which is also claimed to be valued at $1 trillion when it IPOs. So you're going to have the cash from the greater population driving either of these things. And so I don't naturally agree that that's true anymore. Google is not going to be able to win and last, because these folks are going to have access to free hype money.
But and I absolutely agree that there's a case. Like if you look at Tesla's revenue versus how much they're spending and what they're worth, it's ridiculous.
Yes, it doesn't match.
Rational, it doesn't match, and that's what I think that is completely. I'm still hooked into the belief that the markets will be rational and forced to be rational at some point. And
at some point,
I can be wrong. What's the quote?
So that's the point.
Be irrational longer than you can stay solvent, right?
Exactly, and that's what's going to happen. Is you have this rush of capital, and the capital is going to invert the proper incentives, which is where you get bad behavior. And then you have a whole bunch of people, because this stuff is IPO'd. You have regular Joes who've thrown their cash in, like chasing cryptocurrency without understanding what they were doing. They're the ones who are going to get hurt.
Yep. I think that we're being told that we're now ready. Zach's coming up next, I think, right?
Yeah, Zach's up next. He has been a one-man spicy conversation on artificial intelligence. I always feel like he could have done the AI rant by himself.
I am happy
arguing with himself.
I'm happy to be the warm-up act for Zach on that. So, But I have to get going, y'all. Hey, thank you so much. And Anthony, Don, John, once again, I mean it from the bottom of my heart. Like I said, thank you for having me be on here, even though we're competitors. But like I said, I think the best thing in life is when your competitors are your best friends. And I'm rooting for you guys, and I love what you're doing here. It's another great community. Everyone, please, please, please get hooked into as many communities as we possibly can, because it's the exact opposite of all the bullshit that we were talking about. We need our own tribes, right? We need actual human beings, and places like this are where we find human beings to connect with. So get out there. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, John.
John,
thank you so much. All.
Always yes to anything that you want because of everything you've done. And I've known you all the way back to when you were a cadet. Anthony and Don, thank you for putting this together.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you,
Appreciate
guys.
it.